Good morning, students. So today I am going to discuss the first step of uh, SDLC, Software Development Life Cycle, which is requirement analysis, or sometimes it is also known as requirement specification. So software requirements. The If we see first what is requirement, so the software requirements are described of features and functionalities of the target system. So what is requirement engineering? So requirement engineering, the process to gather the software requirements from clients, analyze and documents them, is known as requirement engineering. So a requirement is a feature. A requirement is a feature of the system or a descriptions of something the system is capable of doing in order to fulfill the system's purpose. So the goal of requirement engineering is to develop and maintain sophisticated and descriptive system requirements specifications document. The requirement engineering process, it is a four-step process which includes feasibility study, requirement gathering, software requirement specification, software requirement validations, etc. So if we see the feasibility study, what is feasibility study? So when the clients approached the organization for getting the desired product developed, it comes up with a rough idea about what all functions the software must perform and which all features are expected from the software. So referencing to this information, the analyst do a detailed study about whether the desired system and its functionality are feasible to develop. So this feasibility study is focused towards goal of the organization. So this study analyzed whether the software product can be practically materialized in terms of implementation, contribution of project to organization, cost constraint, and as per value and objective of the organization. It explored technical aspect of the project and product such as usability, maintainability, productivity, and integration ability. So the output of this phase should be feasible study report that should contain adequate comments and recommendations for management about whether or not the project should be undertaken. So next, requirement gathering. So if the feasibility report is positive towards the undertaking the project, next phase start with gathering requirements from the user. The analyst and engineer communicate with the clients and end users to know their ideas on what the software should provide and which features they want the software to include. Software requirement specifications. The SRS, software requirement specification SRS is a document created by system analyst after the requirements are collected from various stakeholders. So SRS defines how the intended software will interact with hardware, external interfaces, speed of operations, response time of system, portability of software across various platforms, maintainability, speed of recovery after crashing, security, quality, limitations, etc. So the requirement received from clients are written in a natural language. It is the responsibility of the system analyst to document the requirement in technical language so that they can be comprehended and used by the software development team. So SRS should come up with some following features. So some important features deals in SRS. So number one, user requirements are expressed in natural language. Number two, technical requirements are expressed in structural language which is used inside the organizations. Number three, design description should be written in pseudocode. Number four, formats of form or graphical user interface skins prints. Number five, conditional and mathematical notations for data flow diagrams, etc. Next, if we see software requirements validations. Software requirement specifications are developed. The requirement mentioned in these documents are validated. So user might ask for illegal, impractical solutions, or expert may interpret the requirements inaccurately. So this results in huge increase in cost if not met in the bud. So requirements can be checked against following conditions. Number one, if they can be practically implemented. Number two, if they are valid and as per functionality and domain of software. Number three, if there are any ambiguities. Number four, if they are complete. Number five, if they can be demonstrated. So if we see requirement elicitation process. So requirement elicitation process can be depicted using following diagram. First, requirement gathering. Next, requirement organizations. Next, negotiation and discussions. And finally, requirement specifications. So these four steps we have. So requirement gathering means the developer discuss with the clients and customers as well as end users and know their expectations from the software. Number two step, organizing requirements means the developer prioritize and arrange the requirements in order of importance, urgency, and convenience for the software. Next, negotiation and discussion. If requirements are ambiguous or there are some conflicts in requirements of various stakeholders, then it is then negotiated and discussed with the stakeholders. Requirement may be prioritized or reasonably compromised. So the requirements comes from various stakeholders to remove the ambiguity and conflicts. They are discussed for clarity and correctness. Unrealistic requirements are compromised reasonably. Next, documentations. So all formal and informal, functional and non-functional requirements are documented and made available for next phase processing. So requirement elicitations technique is the process to find out the requirements for an intended software system by communicating with clients and users, end users, customer system users, and others who have abstract software system development. So there are various ways to discover the requirements. Some of them are explained below. So these are steps. Interview. So interview are strong medium to collect requirements gatherings. So organizations may conduct several types of interviews such as structured closed interview, non-structured open interview, oral interview, written interview, one-to-one such are held between two persons across the table. So group interview which are held between groups of participants in this way. Next, survey. So organizations may conduct survey among the various stakeholders by querying about their expectations and requirements from upcoming systems. Questionnaire. A document with predefined set of objectives, questions and respective options is handed over to all stakeholders to answer, which are collected and compiled. So a shortcoming of this technique is if an option for some issue is not mentioned in the questionnaire, the issue might be left unattended. So task analysis. So team of engineers and developers may analyze the operations for which the new system is required. If the client already has some software to perform certain operations, then it is studied and requirements of proposed systems are collected. Next, domain analysis. So every software falls into some domain category. So the expert people in the domain can be a great help to analyze general and specification requirements. Next, brainstorming. An informal debate is held among various stakeholders and all their inputs are recorded for further requirement analysis. Next, prototyping. Prototyping is building user interface without adding details functionality for user to interpret the features of intended software product. So it helps gives better idea of requirements. If there is no software installed at client's end for developer reference and the client is not aware of its own requirements, then the developer creates a prototype model or prototype based on initial mentioned requirements. So the prototype is shown to the clients and feedback is noted. The client feedback serves as an input for requirement gathering. Next, observation. So the team of experts visits the client's organizations or workplace. They observe the actual working of existing installed system. They observe the workflow at the client's end and how executions problems are dealt. The team itself draws some conclusions which aid to form requirements expected from the software. So now come to software requirement characteristics. So gathering software requirements is the foundation of entire software development project. So hence they must be clear, correct and well defined. So software requirement characteristics. A software requirement, a complete software requirement specifications SRS has some characteristics and it must follow some characteristics. Number one, clear. It must be clear in what is the motive, what is the aim. Number two, it should be correct. Number three, consistent. Number four, coherent. Number five, comprehensible. Number six, modifiable. Number seven, verifiable. Number eight, prioritize. Next, unambiguous, traceable. Next, credible sources. So software requirements, we should try to understand what sort of requirement may arise in the requirement elicitation phase and what kind of requirements are expected from the software system. So software requirements broadly categorized into two categories. Number one, functional requirements. Functional requirements. So requirements which are related to functional aspect of software fall into this category. They define function and functionality within and the form of software system. So for example, search option given to user to search from various invoices. Users should be able to mail any report to management. So user can be divided into groups and groups can give some separate rights, etc. Then non-functional requirements. This type of requirements which are not related to functional aspect of software falls into this category. They are implicit or expected characteristics of software which users make assumption of. So non-functional requirements includes security, logging, storage, configurations, performance, cost, interoperability, flexibility, disaster recovery, accessibility, etc. So requirements are categorized logically as must have. Software cannot be set operational without them. Should have, enhancing the functionality of software. Could have, software can still properly function with these requirements. Wish list, these requirements don't map to any objective of software. So next, user interface requirement. So user interface is an important part of any software or hardware or hybrid system. A software is widely accepted if it is easy to operate, quick in response, and effectively handling operational errors, providing simple yet consistent user interface. So user acceptance majority depends upon how user can use the software. So user interface is the only way for user to perceive the system. A well-performing software system must also be equipped with attractive, clear, consistent, and responsive user interface. Otherwise, the functionality of software cannot be used in a convenient way. So user interface requirements are briefly mentioned below. So it should be content presentations, easy navigations, simple interface, responsive, consistent user interface elements, feedback mechanism, etc. So today I am conclude my class with this. Thank you.